Ladies and gentlemen, listen up, fellas, because I'm about to drop some truth that can save you from a lot of unnecessary drama. Imagine this, you're chilling, doing your thing, but then you stop talking to her. Maybe it's intentional, maybe it's not, but the second you go quiet, everything changes. Now, she's sitting there thinking, wondering, and overanalyzing every little detail. And guess what? None of those thoughts are doing you any favors. The silence, it's louder than you think, and it's saying more than you ever intended. In this speech, I'm going to break down exactly what goes through her mind when you stop talking, and why it's crucial for you to understand this if you want to keep the connection alive. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. So stay tuned, because the next few minutes could change everything in the way you approach your relationships. When you stop talking to her, the first thing she thinks is, "Is he losing interest in me?" You may think that silence is your way of pulling back, taking a break, or just trying to focus on other things, but for her, it's a whole different story. Women are naturally emotional and intuitive beings, and when a man stops talking, they don't just shrug it off. They start questioning the foundation of the relationship. They immediately begin to wonder, did I do something wrong? Or is there someone else? When communication slows down or comes to a complete halt, it triggers feelings of insecurity. The silence gives her space to fill in the blanks with negative thoughts. The silence feels like a red flag to her, especially if your conversations have always been frequent or meaningful. Suddenly, when that communication slows down or ceases altogether, she's left in the dark, and darkness breeds uncertainty. She might even feel like you're pushing her away or taking her for granted. And the worst part, the longer the silence lasts, the more her imagination runs wild. It's not that she's overthinking on purpose. It's that when you stop talking, she has no other choice but to try and figure out what's going on in your head. And without that communication, she often lands on the conclusion that things are slipping away from her. The problem is, as men, we might not even be aware of the damage this can do. You could be thinking that you're just chilling, maybe you're busy or overwhelmed, and you need a little space to recharge. That's understandable, but when you stop talking, she doesn't have the same understanding. To her, the silence might feel like neglect. She might start to doubt her worth in your life. Women thrive on communication, and when the lines of communication are cut off, it leaves a void that's hard for her to ignore. In this moment, she's not just wondering if you're still interested, she's questioning whether she's still important to you. It's not just about the love or affection anymore. It's about her feeling seen, valued, and appreciated. When a woman feels like she's being shut out, it leads to a deeper emotional insecurity. She might think, maybe I'm not good enough for him, or I must have done something to push him away. The more silence she receives, the louder these thoughts become, and over time, this can damage the trust and connection you've built, even if unintentionally. But here's the kicker. When you're silent, you're also leaving her to fend for herself emotionally. And women, like anyone, don't want to feel abandoned, especially when they're emotionally invested. She might start pulling away, or she could even try to initiate a conversation. But the longer you remain distant, the harder it is to repair that emotional gap. Silence isn't just about not speaking, it's about the emotional distance that it creates. In her mind, every unanswered text, every missed phone call, every ignored conversation deepens the emotional divide. In relationships, communication is the bridge that connects both people. And when that bridge is under construction or completely abandoned, both sides start to feel the strain. She might not be able to say it out loud, but she feels it deeply. And while silence might seem like a momentary retreat for you, it's often a red flag to her. Something that screams, "He's not there for me." She'll begin to think, maybe he doesn't need me, and maybe he never did. The truth is, as much as men need their space, so do women. But the way they experience that space is vastly different. The more you retreat emotionally, the more she feels like she's losing you. It's not just a simple matter of, "I need some time alone." It's a matter of whether or not she's still worth your time. That silence, if prolonged, leads her to believe that the connection she once had with you might be slipping away, and the fear of losing that connection is what makes her start to doubt everything. So, what should you do when you feel the urge to retreat? The answer lies in being proactive with communication. Even if you don't feel like talking, a simple check-in, a text, a quick call, or just a message that says, "I'm thinking of you," can make all the difference. It reassures her that you're still engaged and that you still care. That small effort of keeping the communication open can prevent her from slipping into a sea of doubts. You might think it's a little thing, but to her, it's everything. It's the difference between her wondering if she's lost you and her knowing that you're still right there, ready to talk when you're ready. And that makes all the difference. When you stop talking to her, the second thing she begins to think is, "Am I not enough for him?" This thought can be incredibly painful and confusing for a woman. A woman's need for emotional connection is deep, and when the conversation fades or the communication stops, it leaves a space that she starts to fill with insecurities. Women naturally thrive on emotional intimacy, and conversation is one of the main ways they nurture this bond. If you suddenly stop talking to her, it sends a message that she's not getting the attention or connection she craves. She wonders, is he just not that into me? And what happened to the connection we had? It's important to understand that this feeling is not about being dramatic or overly emotional. It's about the foundation of any strong relationship, communication. Without it, everything feels uncertain. And when there's a lack of communication, it leads her to believe that maybe she's not enough, that maybe her efforts, love, and attention are not enough to keep the relationship alive. She wonders if she's losing you, not just because you're not talking, but because of the fear that somehow she's no longer the woman you want. What happens next is crucial. When a woman feels that way, she starts to question everything she has done and everything about herself. She starts thinking about past conversations, wondering if she said or did something to push you away. Even if she knows deep down she didn't do anything wrong, the silence and absence of communication have a way of making her feel like she's to blame. It becomes a cycle of self-doubt, wondering if she's too much or not enough. And these feelings can quickly transform into resentment if they're left unchecked. It's natural for men to need some time for themselves, and it's understandable to retreat when life gets overwhelming. However, the issue arises when this retreat is communicated in silence. If she doesn't understand why you're pulling away, or if she isn't assured that it's not a reflection of her worth, the emotional damage can be long-lasting. The idea that she's not enough starts to take root in her mind. Silence breeds feelings of inadequacy, and the longer this silence persists, the more she believes she's not fulfilling the emotional needs of the relationship. The insecurity she feels doesn't stop there. It amplifies every little thing she's already uncertain about. It forces her to read into small gestures, like your change in tone, the absence of affection, or even the way you look at her. It's almost like her mind starts searching for answers that might not even be there, but the silence amplifies every doubt and insecurity. She becomes fixated on the question, if I were enough, why would he pull away? The emotional toll it takes on her is far greater than you might realize, because in a relationship, words and gestures are crucial for maintaining that connection. They allow her to feel secure and loved. Without them, she begins to feel neglected, and the thought that she's not enough consumes her. When a woman starts to think she's not enough for you, it affects her confidence in other areas of her life too. Her sense of self-worth takes a hit. She might begin to feel like she's failing in the relationship, even though there might be nothing she's done wrong. That lack of reassurance makes her question her role in your life. And the deeper she falls into this cycle, the harder it becomes to break free. The silence you create opens up a space where doubt grows, and those doubts begin to control her emotions. However, the most important part of this situation is realizing that these feelings are not permanent. The key is communication. A simple gesture, a phone call, a text, or even a brief conversation can alleviate the doubt she feels and reassure her that she is enough. Silence only breeds insecurity and emotional disconnection, but a consistent effort to talk, even in brief moments, lets her know that she still holds a special place in your life. When you talk to her, when you remind her of her value and express your feelings, you destroy the narrative in her head that she's not enough. Instead, you rebuild the trust and emotional connection that was momentarily lost. It's easy to think that time apart or silence can resolve issues or give both of you space, but it's vital to remember that while silence might help a man clear his head, it often leaves a woman feeling lost and questioning her worth. She needs that reassurance, and she needs you to show her that no matter how quiet things may get, she will always be enough for you. When you stop talking to her, the third thing she begins to think is he losing interest in me? The silence becomes deafening, and as the days go by without meaningful communication, doubts start to creep into her mind. It's not just about the absence of words, it's the absence of reassurance that makes her question the strength of the relationship. As a woman, she begins to wonder whether you've already checked out emotionally and whether the connection you once shared is fading away. This feeling is deep, almost like a sinking feeling in her chest, because when a woman is invested in a relationship, she wants to feel emotionally secure. When that security is threatened by silence, she begins to feel vulnerable, and the vulnerability can lead to a lot of negative emotions. You might not realize it, but the moment you stop talking to her, she starts to analyze everything. She replays your past conversations in her head, searching for clues to explain what went wrong. She might wonder if she did something to upset you, if she said something that turned you off, or if she's somehow not good enough for you anymore. The longer the silence stretches on, the more she begins to feel that maybe she's not the priority she once was. It's not about being overly needy or dramatic. It's simply a natural response to the fear of losing someone important. The relationship's dynamic changes when the conversations stop and the space between you both feels colder. The connection that was once filled with warmth, humor, and communication begins to feel distant and uncertain. This is the kind of feeling that makes her think, has he lost interest in me? Does he still care about me the way he did before? For her, it's not just the silence itself that bothers her, it's the potential that you might be losing interest in her that causes the real emotional distress. Women thrive on emotional connection. It's how they bond, how they feel seen and heard. When that connection seems to be slipping away due to a lack of communication, she might start to feel isolated and disconnected. The fear of losing that connection weighs heavily on her heart, and she's left wondering whether she's done something wrong or if you've simply found someone else who's caught your eye. What often happens next is that the uncertainty in her mind turns into a form of self-doubt. She starts thinking that maybe she's not attractive enough, not interesting enough, or simply not good enough for you. When a woman feels that the man she's with is no longer emotionally engaged, she can begin to question her worth, not just in the relationship, but in general. Her insecurities start to surface. Maybe she feels like she's not measuring up to your standards, or that she's losing the charm and magnetism she once had. When you stop talking to her, it feels like an emotional withdrawal. For her, it might signal the beginning of an emotional distance that she can't seem to bridge. She starts looking for answers, sometimes even in places she shouldn't. Maybe she becomes more anxious, looking for reasons why the silence is happening. She may start asking mutual friends, wondering if something's wrong. Or she might begin to overanalyze every word and action you've ever shared, trying to find a hidden message in everything you've said. She might also start questioning her own actions, wondering if she pushed you away unintentionally. It's a vicious cycle that can be difficult to break because she's operating under the assumption that your silence is a sign of disinterest. If she can't get answers from you directly, she begins to create answers in her own head, often coming to conclusions that are far worse than reality. As time goes on, she might also start to feel more anxious and desperate to figure out what's happening. This can lead to insecurity, and as these feelings build up, they can create tension in the relationship. In an attempt to fix things, she might even become clingy or overly available, hoping that her increased presence will somehow reverse the growing emotional gap between the two of you. But these actions often make things worse, especially if you're still pulling away or not engaging in meaningful communication. Instead of feeling reassured, she feels more uncertain about where she stands in your life. For a woman, communication is a key part of understanding where she fits into your world. When the communication stops, it forces her to make assumptions, and those assumptions are often negative. It's essential to recognize that while men might be more comfortable with space and silence, women tend to perceive it differently. It doesn't just feel like a quiet moment. It feels like a fading connection, a sign that something is slipping away. And that's one of the most painful things she can experience in a relationship. She might want to believe that everything is fine, but without your words and actions to reassure her, the fear that she's losing you will only grow stronger. If you care about her, this is where you need to step up. Silence doesn't have to be the answer to problems. Instead, consistent and honest communication can keep the emotional bond strong. Let her know where you stand, express your feelings, and most importantly, remind her that she matters to you. Even in moments of silence, a small gesture of reassurance can go a long way in easing her mind and letting her know that she's still a priority in your life. When you stop talking to her, the fourth thing that begins to happen is that she starts to feel neglected. And for a woman, this is one of the most painful emotions she can experience in a relationship. Neglect is not always about ignoring her completely or physically abandoning her. Sometimes it's the emotional absence that hurts the most. When you stop talking to her, she feels as though you're no longer investing in the relationship. The deep connection that she thought was shared starts to feel one-sided, and this creates a sense of isolation. She might begin to question whether she's still important to you, and that uncertainty begins to eat away at her confidence and self-esteem. This neglect might not happen all at once, but rather over time. As the silence stretches on and you fail to engage in meaningful conversations, For her, every missed conversation, every ignored text, every unanswered question compounds that feeling of neglect. It's not just about wanting your attention. She craves emotional intimacy. When she feels neglected, it's as if her value in the relationship is being questioned. She starts wondering why you aren't showing up emotionally, why you're not taking the time to connect with her, and why she seems to be so far from your mind. What makes this even harder is that she might not always feel comfortable expressing her feelings about the neglect. Some women may bottle up their emotions because they don't want to seem too needy or come off as demanding. Instead of confronting you directly, she might silently carry this sense of hurt and disappointment. The longer this silence goes on, the more this feeling of neglect intensifies. She starts to feel that she's being left behind, pushed out of your life, or replaced with something else. She might begin to question whether you still think of her as a priority, or if you've already mentally moved on. This neglect isn't just about your lack of communication. It's also about the absence of care and effort that she used to feel from you. Relationships thrive on mutual care and respect. And when that care is missing, it can create a void that's difficult to fill. She might start to feel like she's been forgotten, or that the bond you once shared isn't as strong as it used to be. The pain of neglect can manifest in many ways. It might lead her to become more distant herself as she tries to protect herself from further emotional hurt. She may stop reaching out to you, stop asking about your day, and stop sharing her own thoughts and feelings because she feels that her efforts aren't being reciprocated. She may even start to retreat into herself, closing off emotionally as a defense mechanism. This withdrawal can create a vicious cycle where both of you end up more disconnected, and the distance between you only grows wider. The lack of communication becomes a silent barrier that neither of you knows how to break down. What's important to recognize is that neglect isn't always intentional, but it doesn't make it hurt any less. She might understand that you're busy or going through your own challenges, but that doesn't mean she isn't affected by the lack of communication. She may try to rationalize it at first, telling herself that things will get better or that you'll eventually reach out. But as time goes on, she can't help but feel that this emotional neglect is a reflection of how you truly feel about her. She wonders if you're still invested in the relationship or if you've already checked out emotionally. The most painful part of neglect is when she starts to feel like she's giving more than she's receiving. She continues to try to reach out, to engage, and to make things work, but her efforts don't seem to be enough to bridge the emotional gap. She becomes exhausted by trying to revive the connection on her own. It's disheartening when it feels like she's the only one trying to hold the relationship together while you're emotionally checked out. This emotional exhaustion can lead her to a breaking point where she starts to wonder whether it's worth continuing to invest in someone who doesn't seem to care as much as she does. In relationships, communication is key. When the conversation stops, the emotional bond starts to erode. It's not just about talking for the sake of talking, but about keeping the connection alive through shared experiences, concerns, and affection. The absence of these things leaves a hole in the relationship, and she starts to feel neglected, not because you don't care, but because you haven't shown her that you do. Even a small effort to reach out, to ask about her day, or to let her know you're thinking about her can go a long way in easing the hurt of neglect. She doesn't need grand gestures, but she does need to feel seen, heard, and valued. The moment she feels neglected, she may begin to question her place in your life, and that's a question that can be difficult to answer if the silence continues. So, when you stop talking to her, be mindful of the emotional damage that neglect can cause. If you truly care about her, don't let the silence linger. Speak up, reach out, and remind her that she's important. It's not just about ending the silence. It's about showing her that she's worth the effort and that you're still invested in making the relationship thrive. When you stop talking to her, the fifth and perhaps most profound thing that happens is that she starts to feel like she's losing the connection with you. As time passes, she starts to feel like she's no longer a priority in your life. This is one of the deepest emotional reactions that can arise from a lack of communication, and it can be incredibly damaging. When a woman feels that she is being pushed aside, she can experience a great deal of confusion and hurt. It's a feeling that makes her question everything about the relationship, from your feelings for her to the future of your connection. What starts as a small disconnect can grow into a huge emotional divide if not addressed. At first, she might tell herself that it's just a phase, that you're busy or dealing with other things. She tries to rationalize your silence, thinking that it's temporary. But over time, she starts to wonder why it's taking so long for things to return to normal. The silence grows louder, and with every moment that you don't reach out, the bond you share becomes weaker. It's not about the amount of time that's passed, but about the absence of connection, communication, and shared moments that she craves. She might feel that if you truly cared, you would have made an effort to reach out or to communicate by now. The longer the silence persists, the more she starts to internalize the belief that she's no longer worth the effort. This feeling of losing the connection is particularly hard because it goes beyond the superficial aspects of the relationship. It's about the emotional intimacy, the companionship, and the closeness that come from constant communication. She starts to feel like she's not just losing you, but also losing the future she envisioned with you. The plans you made, the dreams you shared, and the little moments that once felt so significant now seem distant and unattainable. It's a painful realization for her, and one that can make her feel helpless and alone. She begins to feel like she's fighting for something that you no longer want to invest in. And that can create a tremendous amount of insecurity. The most damaging part of this is that once she begins to feel that she's losing you emotionally, she may begin to pull back too. It's a defense mechanism. If she can't rely on you to reach out, to keep the communication flowing, then she might begin to shield herself emotionally. This is often when she starts to stop trying as hard. She won't text as frequently, then won't engage in the same way, and will gradually withdraw her emotional investment. This doesn't happen because she no longer cares. It's the opposite. She pulls back because she's trying to protect herself from being hurt further. She begins to feel like the relationship is no longer a two-way street and that her feelings are no longer being valued or considered. The result is that the emotional connection that once existed between you begins to fade. As this disconnection continues, she may begin to second guess everything about the relationship. She wonders if she's done something wrong or if there's something about her that made you stop reaching out. She starts to feel that she's not good enough, that she's not worthy of the attention or affection she once received. And even though you may not be consciously pulling away, the lack of communication and emotional distance feels like a rejection to her. It's the type of rejection that's particularly difficult to overcome because it isn't clear-cut. It isn't a sudden, definitive break. Instead, it's a slow, steady erosion of trust and intimacy. What makes this even more complicated is that she may not always express her feelings to you directly. She may keep her emotions bottled up because she doesn't want to come off as needy or demanding. She doesn't want to seem like she's pressuring you for attention, but internally, she's wrestling with all these feelings of doubt, hurt, and confusion. Her silence in response to your silence can create a vicious cycle where both of you are unsure of where the other stands, leading to further emotional distance. What's crucial to understand is that even though she may not say it, she's feeling the impact of this disconnect deeply. Over time, this emotional withdrawal can lead to a breaking point. She might start to pull away permanently because she can no longer bear the uncertainty and emotional pain. She starts to shut down, not because she doesn't care, but because she's learned to protect herself from the hurt of waiting for a connection that no longer seems to be there. And when she starts to emotionally disengage, it can be incredibly difficult to rebuild that closeness because the damage has already been done. The longer this emotional void exists, the more challenging it becomes to restore the bond you once shared. At the core of this issue is communication. It's not about talking all the time, but about making sure the emotional connection remains intact. The absence of communication can make her feel like you're slowly slipping away, and that's something that women are particularly sensitive to. When you stop talking to her, she may begin to feel like the emotional foundation of your relationship is crumbling. To avoid this, it's important to check in, to reach out, and to make her feel like she's still a priority. This doesn't require grand gestures. Even a simple message or a quick call can remind her that you're still emotionally present and that the connection is still there. But when that doesn't happen, she may feel like the relationship is fading, and that's a painful realization for anyone. The key to keeping the relationship strong is staying emotionally engaged and ensuring that the communication lines remain open even during times of silence. When you stop talking to her, the sixth and final emotional reaction that often arises is that she begins to feel confused and uncertain about her value in your life. Silence, or a lack of meaningful communication, can quickly cause someone to feel like they're not important enough to deserve attention. Women are particularly sensitive to the energy in their relationships, and when the connection begins to fade, they may start questioning their own worth. She wonders why you've stopped communicating, if it's something she did, or if it's something she didn't do. These thoughts can lead her down a path of insecurity, where she feels like she's not good enough to keep your attention. It can cause her to spiral into self-doubt, and she might start overanalyzing every little interaction, looking for clues as to why you've gone quiet. This sense of confusion can create a deep emotional disconnect. It's not just about the physical absence of communication, but the emotional impact it has on her. She starts to wonder whether your silence means you no longer care about her, or if your feelings have changed. The uncertainty makes her feel abandoned, and it can make her emotionally fragile. The longer the silence lasts, the more this sense of uncertainty will grow. Eventually, she may begin to feel like she's the only one invested in the relationship. It becomes harder for her to understand what's going on. And when she can't find answers, she may start pulling away emotionally as a way to protect herself. The lack of communication can also breed suspicion. When a woman feels neglected, her mind may start to wander, and she may begin to question your loyalty. She wonders whether you're seeing someone else, or whether you've lost interest in her. Her mind begins to fill with all sorts of possibilities that might not even be true, but the uncertainty becomes overwhelming. She might start searching for signs of infidelity or other signs of emotional detachment. While some of these thoughts may be exaggerated or untrue, the lack of reassurance from you can make these fears seem real. The longer she goes without communication, the more likely these thoughts will spiral out of control. This sense of confusion is dangerous because it can lead to a breakdown of trust. Trust is the cornerstone of any strong relationship, and when communication disappears, trust starts to erode. Without clear and consistent communication, she feels like she's in the dark about where she stands. She's left trying to piece together the puzzle on her own, and the uncertainty makes it difficult for her to feel secure in the relationship. When a person feels like they can't rely on the other for emotional support and clarity, it becomes difficult for them to feel safe. This can lead to deep emotional frustration and resentment, which is hard to come back from once it's developed. The longer the silence continues, the more she starts to feel like she's fighting a battle she can't win. She wonders if her efforts to connect are in vain. Women are naturally nurturers, and they value emotional connection and communication deeply. When she feels like the communication lines are closing, it feels like her efforts to nurture the relationship are being ignored. She might begin to withdraw, not because she doesn't care, but because she's trying to protect herself from further hurt. The more this pattern continues, the more distant she becomes, both emotionally and physically, and the harder it is to reverse. Additionally, the absence of communication may cause her to lose interest in trying altogether. If she's been putting an effort to make things work, but all her attempts are met with silence or indifference, she may start to give up on trying to make things better. She may wonder if it's even worth her time and energy to keep putting herself out there if she's not getting anything in return. It's emotionally exhausting to keep trying to reach someone who's not reciprocating, and at a certain point, she may begin to let go of the hope that things will get better. The more you fail to reach out or show interest, the more she starts to accept that the relationship is not as important to you as it is to her. As the confusion grows, she may also begin to lose sight of what she wanted from the relationship in the first place. The longer you stop talking to her, the more her own feelings and expectations become muddled. She may no longer be sure if she wants to stay in the relationship or if she's holding on to something that's not healthy for her. The silence forces her to turn inward, and while she may still care deeply, the emotional distance is making it harder to recognize what she needs or wants moving forward. In the worst cases, this confusion can push her to give up on the relationship entirely. If she feels like she's being ignored and doesn't understand why, she may eventually make the decision that it's better to move on than to continue waiting for a connection that isn't there. This sense of abandonment and confusion can be more damaging than anything else because it's a slow emotional withdrawal. And by the time she's ready to let go, it might feel like it's too late to fix things. At this point, the damage done from the silence can be irreversible. To avoid this, it's crucial to maintain open communication, even in difficult times. This ensures that both parties understand each other's feelings and can work together to build a stronger emotional connection. If one person feels abandoned or confused, it becomes difficult for the relationship to survive.